Perfect. Well, I thought I'd just start by getting to know who I'm speaking to today. Can we maybe do a little bit of a roundtable introductions, just so I know where everybody is coming from? If you could tell me your name, what organization you're connected with, if there is one, and a little bit about what's on your mind when it comes to content planning and scheduling. Do you find it easy? Are you challenged by anything? Anything that's on your mind for that. I'm going to call you in the order that I see you on the side. And if you're not available to come on and on the screen, that's okay. We'll just give it a minute. I know sometimes people are multitasking, and that's fine as well. Roseanne, we all know and love. The next one I see is Natalie in Minnedosa.
Okay. So yes, I'm in Minnedosa. I'm part of the Minnedosa Performing Arts Committee. We're just a volunteer organization. We have about 9 members now, which is awesome. We just present music and theater over, I'd say, the winter months. So starting in the fall, finishing in the spring. And I am in charge of the social media, and I know nothing.
Interesting. Is there anything in particular that you find challenging about managing the social media?
Well, presently I know that it's like a really good idea. I was told once at another mentorship that it's a good idea to plan all of your stuff, do it all like kind of in one day, and then just forget about it, walk away. I have yet to do that. Partly because I think I have time to kind of just get on every day and do a quick little post or every other day. But I'm about to leave the country before an event, and I thought, oh, I should really pre-plan all this and get it done. So this is good timing.
Perfect. Wendy, you're next on my list here.
Hi, my name is Wendy Todd, and I'm from the Eastern Manitoba Concert Association. We're located in Pinawa, Manitoba, kind of northeastern, well, sort of southern northeastern. We do typically 8 music concerts a year. This is our 50th season, so it's kind of exciting. And it's a volunteer organization as well. And I basically don't do much of a lead. I don't do any digital marketing, but I know our digital marketing person couldn't sit in today, so I'm kind of chair of our program selection committee. So I thought and I'm new to that, so everything's going to help or anything will help.
Yeah. Well, and ideally, whoever is scheduling the social media is having lots of conversations with people who are connected with programming and other aspects of the organization. So it's never a bad thing, for everybody to understand a little bit more about what each other does.
Yeah. She's hoping to catch the next 2 presentations, but I think she's...
Sounds good. Ali, you're next on my list.
Okay, hi. My name is Ali. I'm the new Gallery Services and Gift Shop Coordinator at the Art Gallery of Southwestern Manitoba over in Brandon. I've done social media for a lot of other organizations in the past, but managing a gift shop is a little bit different than what I've done with my social media content. So yeah, just seeing if I can find anything here.
Okay,
Thanks.
Great. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Nope, all good.
Very good. Thank you, Ali. Heather? Oh, there's 2 Heathers. I have the Heather who has no last name first, and then the Heather who does have a last name. I think I saw Heather unmute. Oh, there you are.
There's Heather, yeah.
Hi, there I am. Sorry about that. Hi, I'm Heather Dobson, and I stumbled upon this work group. I'm between careers at the moment, and I'm interested in pursuing a sort of an art career. I was doing a bunch of different things in my life so far, and interested in doing some a little bit of sort of marketing myself as an artist, and then just seeing where that sort of takes me, if this can sort of help me sort of navigate what I need to learn, sort of thing. Yeah, I don't know how life sort of guides me where I'm going, and I just sort of take the little breadcrumbs and follow them. Yeah. So yeah.
I know what you mean. I think I follow a very similar path. There will definitely be some tips that would be useful for marketing yourself as an artist as well. Even though I'd say I had more organizations in mind when developing the presentation, but there's a lot of things that are quite universal. Just to ask a quick question, I see there's also a Heather Dawson in the list. Are you on twice, or is there a second Heather here?
I'm not on twice now.
Okay, all right. Okay, and
there's
there's
the other Heather.
Heather number 2.
Hello there. I'm joining as 2 hats, I guess. One for myself. I'm a artist in Toulon, Manitoba, and I focus mainly in fused glass and kiln formed glass. I do a little bit of stained glass as well. My second hat is I'm chairman of the Wave Interlake Studio Tour for the artists in the Interlake. So that's my second hat, and just trying to get a better grasp on social media. I've been doing it for myself for many years, but maybe not as well as I could be. And I think there's always something new to learn and to do better. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you for joining us today. And then I've got 2 more on this list here. I've got actually no, Natalie's we've already spoken to, so it's just the PA Arts Council.
Debbie here. I can't have the camera and the speaker because I only have a couple holes there. I'm just with the PA Arts Council, and everything you learn, it's best to keep learning.
All right.
I'm a lot like I'm on Facebook a lot for myself, but then the Arts Council's on Facebook a lot too for all the different events and stuff like that too. And we have to promote like all our member group stuff and everything. So
Yeah, so you have a lot of things that you've got to keep track of and organize for your.
You got the home roots, and I mean, member groups put their own stuff on, but we have to continue to market it and stuff like that. And then we got the Northern Druid Art Show coming up, and so lots of things.
Okay, great. So I am going to share my screen. Let me just find where the button is. I'm going to toggle back and forth between my PowerPoint and and then coming away for discussions at certain points. And there are a couple of points. Oh, hello, Flin Flon Arts Council. I didn't see you before. We were just doing introductions. Just before I move on, do you mind just introducing yourself and telling me, kind of what you do and who you are, and if there's anything in particular you were hoping to get out of the session today? Are you? No, you're not muted. Oh, you don't have. There's no microphone for Flin Flon. So maybe later, or you can tell me in the chat if you'd like. Okay, we'll do that. If you want to put a few words in the chat, that would be nice, just so that I can get a bit of a sense of where you're coming from. Okay, so can everybody see the screen here? Okay, perfect. So just a bit about what we'll cover today. We're going to go over how to use a marketing calendar and why it might be a useful tool for you. Along with that, I've got some tips for coming up with ideas for content and producing content when you're short on money, time, resources, like many of us are, especially volunteer presenters. I've got a couple of recommended tools and resources, and we're going to also include just some comments about AI and when it can be helpful and some of the things to look out for if you're trying to use AI to help with content planning. Before I continue though, just on the question of AI, is anybody here currently using AI as part of their marketing and communications? You could just put a 1 in the chat if you have tested it or played with it, and like a 0 if you never have. Okay, so we've got some. Heather's tried it. Heather, do you mind just sharing, what your experience of that has been so far? Have you found it to be useful, Heather Dawson?
I've just been dabbling a little bit with it, just asking questions and this and that, and seeing what what kind of results it gives me, mostly to think of subject lines for email marketing or that kind of thing. So really just a starting point, not a finished product. So something that it gives me different prompts to consider, and then I build off of that.
Okay. And is it Chat GPT you're mainly using, or are you using a different AI tool?
No, Chat GPT.
Okay. And Natalie, you also have done a little bit of playing around with AI. What's your experience been so far?
It's been okay. The only time I've really used it was just creating Eventbrite, just kind of a description of the event, just to see what it would come up with.
Yeah.
It was okay, but I changed quite a bit of it. It wasn't really me. It didn't quite fit my event. So, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. I was just curious because it is something that's new and people are at different places with it, and it's just helpful for me to have a bit of an idea of where you're coming from for it. As we go along, feel free to add comments or questions in the chat, or if you have something that you want to ask a follow-up on, feel free to unmute and jump in or raise your hand. All of that's fine. I like it to be a very conversational kind of style as we go. So I just want to start by saying, like, why use a marketing calendar? Not everybody does, and and if you're not, don't feel bad. Lots of people don't too. But as we were talking about a little bit earlier, sometimes it's helpful to be able to plan in advance and and have a bit of a roadmap for what you need to be doing. The more complicated your social media is, and the less time you have for it, the more useful it is to use a content calendar. So, the main things that, that you're looking to do with a content calendar is to stay organized, map out what's coming up so that you give yourself enough time to prepare for it. Social media isn't just about putting something, in the little box on Facebook and pressing go. You have to write it. You have to decide what you're going to say. How are you going to tell that story? And if you're going to create something more engaging and interesting, it's helpful if you give yourself a little time to come up with that stuff. It also can help you spot overlap. It's happened to me before where I've had a number of things I'm working on, and and it looks like they're all spaced out, but when I actually think about the amount of time I need for the campaigns, it turns out that I've got 4 or 5 things I'm trying to talk about at once, and it's I prefer to have fewer messages coming out at any given time. So sometimes it's helpful just to be able to see that, and then you can choose whether you want to shift some dates on things that are maybe more flexible, so that you can focus more on fewer messages in the market. Identifying the budget and resources required, for content production is a big reason why this is a useful tool. It's one thing just to, put a note on Facebook or Instagram, promoting that, say, an event is coming up at your theater. But there maybe is more you could do if you, sat down with your team and brainstormed, if you gave yourself a little time to maybe record a video or to take some additional photographs or do other things like this. So it just gives you that point of reflection. And then knowing what you do have to do and what's coming up, some of it you can produce in a batch and schedule out in advance so that you're not posting every day. But even if you are the type of person who prefers to be spontaneous and, and log in, at least when you sit down, to produce your content for that day or week, you know what you're supposed to do. You've got your oh yeah, that's right, I was going to do that. So it just kind of makes it less pressure to go. Is anybody currently using a content calendar today? Just give it a minute, just unmute if you are. Okay, so Heather, you're using Facebook Business Suite to schedule out posts. Is that right?
I use the same thing, the Meta business.
Do you use any kind of a tool to capture your ideas before you're ready to to schedule them in Facebook? An Excel spreadsheet. Okay. So yeah, that's great. Excel spreadsheets can do a lot of heavy lifting. And I have a template for a content calendar that is in fact an Excel spreadsheet, but people use all kinds of different tools. Yeah, I love Excel too. So, the other thing a content calendar helps with is consistency. It can help you to stay on message if you're the kind of organization that has defined things like content pillars to structure your content. It lets you see, what the tone of voice, is going to be, or what topics you're planning to cover, all of those things. And when you're producing content in batches instead of one at a time, it also can be helpful because it allows you to see everything next to each other, so that you can make sure that it is kind of following a similar kind of tone and style, and even colors and brand and all of that. So I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of, one way that you can plan out your content. Not everybody needs to be at this level of detail. You can feel free to adjust based on the cycle that works for you. But if you start from the biggest, highest level perspective, and you think about what are the things that I know are coming up over the next year, or maybe it's the next season if you work in shorter cycles in your organization, and make a list of that, like any events that you've got coming up that have a date with it, any key messages you want to make sure that you get out into the world during that period, any campaigns, are there any holidays that you want to recognize or create content around, all of those things. And you might want to give some thought to the goals as well. Is there anything you're trying to accomplish? Are you trying to sell tickets? Are you trying to raise money? Are you trying to increase your Spotify followers if you're a musician? And whatever it is that is your goal, it's helpful to just have that in your mind and write it down somewhere so that you know what you're aiming for. You've got that list now of stuff you want to talk about. And whether that is stuff over the year or over the season or over the week, either way, you need to translate those ideas or those notions into content. So taking a little bit of time and doing a bit of a brainstorming or mind mapping session can be good for that. For each item on the list, just do a brain dump of what are all the things I could say about this? What kinds of content do I have available for it? What media assets do I have? Sometimes you're going to have a lot, and sometimes you won't have very much. And either way, it's useful to know. So, for example, for an upcoming show, you might have some great photography from one artist and not very much coming from another artist. Or if it's for yourself as an artist, maybe you've got something that you're working on, and it might be a reminder that maybe I should take some photographs documenting the process, because I know I'm going to be wanting to talk about this, in the upcoming season. The Excel sheets come in handy here. So there's a tool called a copy bank, which some people use. It can also, just be you could think of it as a brain dump sheet, but having some kind of a place where you store those ideas is useful. And at this stage, you're not worrying about what's the best idea or even how feasible it is. You're just getting thoughts out. Later on, when you go and you break down month by month, week by week, you can take a look at that brain dump list and go, okay, this is when I'm going to talk about things, about this. This is when I'm going to share that video. Yes, I am going to move forward with this idea I had then. And so, you go kind of first with that big picture by the year or the season, thinking about what you're going to say, then break it down by month and schedule by week. You won't necessarily do all of this all at once, but those steps are helpful so that you can have a sense of what's coming up. So, one of the questions people often ask about social media is how do you get better return on investment in social media? And the answer is that you have to know what you want to get out of social media. So think about, what is it that you're trying to do? Are you trying to sell tickets? Are you trying to raise money? What's the target for that? What role does social media have in that bigger goal? Who are your audiences that you're trying to connect with, and what do they want to know about you? How can you connect with them? What's interesting to them? Are there new audiences you want to reach? And give some thought as well to like what kind of content or what kind of media would be interesting for them. If you're trying to reach out to younger audiences, you might have to do a little more video, for example, or you might need to explore different social media platforms than if you're going after an audience that's more, you know, kind of a, I don't know, middle-aged kind of group. Those ones are probably on Facebook. Think about when do you want people to take an action and what kind of an action do you want to take, and reflect on things like what are the triggers or the barriers that will influence the person to take action. I have buy here, but it could just be any action that you want. It could be listen to a song, it could be anything. So, you know, there will be incentives. Like, so for example, for a lot of people, fear of missing out is an incentive. And so when they see that somebody else has recommended something, when they see a review, they get more interested in it. Or when they know that something is scarce and might run out, they're interested. So those would be triggers, right? Other people, and the other thing to think about is the opposite of that, the barriers, right? Maybe cost is a barrier, and maybe you have an answer to that barrier. Maybe you have special ticket prices that, you know, would be the answer to somebody who's worried about cost for your show. So, you know, reflecting on these things and just keeping them in mind as you go through this process is helpful, because you want to get past just talking about what you're doing and trying to create content that speaks to the person who's on the other end and their hopes and feelings and wants and needs. So here's that cycle that I talked about earlier, kind of in another kind of map. So on a yearly basis, you're looking at like those really big anchor points, the important dates, any key campaigns, and you want to pay attention to the runway dates for those campaigns so that you don't overlap too much with each other. On a quarterly basis, you're reviewing that annual plan and making sure that it's still what you're doing. You're identifying maybe key messages or campaigns, thinking a little bit about where your audience is today and what you want them to do next. You're maybe making decisions about what kinds of creative things you're going to produce. Like, are you going to make videos? Are you going to shoot some photos? Are you going to design some graphics? Do you need to hire somebody to do that, or do you need to find a volunteer to do that? That's a good time to kind of reflect on that as you're coming ahead. You know, coming into the monthly and weekly cycles, that's when you actually would get into scheduling. So using things like the Facebook, or I guess it's Meta scheduler. You know, it's unlikely you would be scheduling things more than, you know, about a month or so in advance, because you need to give yourself some flexibility to respond as well. I think there's a limit as well for Facebook's schedule about how far in advance you can schedule things. On that monthly basis, you want to be looking at what you've got coming down the pipeline, you know, what you're planning to talk about, and see, like, are there maybe some days or weeks where you have more stuff than others? Maybe you need to, you know, readjust it so that it's a little more balanced. And it's also a good time to do some of that batch content creation. I'm just going to stop sharing here for a second and talk a little bit about the idea of batch creation. Now, I know we talked a bit about it in the front end. Is there anybody here who does that? You know, who blocks out you know, a few hours, let's say, in their week, and produces a whole bunch of Facebook posts or blog posts or, you know, graphics or other content? Does anybody here have a process like that, or do you all kind of produce things as you need them? Okay, so Ali says tries to get it done at the end of the week for the following week. Okay, yeah, that's really good. Okay, so okay, and Heather tries to record content as I'm working on my artwork, but I take time to sit and edit video for reels all at one shot. Yeah, that's great. Heather, I would love to hear more from you about your process for creating reels. Do you mind speaking to that for just a moment? I'm curious how you do that, and if you have any tips for people who are looking to do reels as well.
I'm sorry, I'm eating my lunch and stuff in my face while I have my video off. Basically, I've found better success with the ones that are less polished. And I edit videos in Final Cut Pro. I was using iMovie before, but I upgraded and now I've got better software. So I just like the functionality of being able to crunch videos down into a time lapse or something like that, and just kind of edit them easily and then toss them back onto my phone where I can put them onto my drafts page and the reels and then just have a whole bunch of them ready to go and then post them out of there.
Really cool.
Yeah,
Do
so
you,
that's where I'm at.
how far in advance do you decide what you're going to record? Is it pretty spontaneous, or do you have kind of a schedule or a routine you follow?
I'm very non-scheduled. This year I kind of made a promise to myself that I'm going to start showing up more regularly and more consistently. I find that sometimes I get a whole bunch of content, and because I've seen it a whole bunch of times, like when I'm releasing a new collection, I have all of these photos and videos of when I was making it, and I'm almost tired of seeing it. So by the time that it gets to be posted, I'm on to something else, and it's like I don't have the energy to talk about it anymore. So I need to kind of have a better system of doing things as I'm going so that it's already done while I'm in the moment and then ahead of time. So by the time that it comes time to it's posting, I've already done that work weeks ago and taking care of it while I still have the energy for it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I was definitely very curious about it. You know, I think especially like creative people too, like, you know, I think a lot of artists and artist types, you know, like to kind of improvise a little bit. And I know for myself, there's a freshness that I feel is present in content that I'm creating in the moment as I feel inspired, that is different than things that I'm scripting in advance. But that said, I think that it in some ways can be freeing to be more spontaneous and in the moment if you know that the basic stuff has already been taken care of. You know, then all you have to do is the fun stuff that remains when you're inspired to do it. So I'm going to show you now one example of a content calendar. So this is an Excel-based, well, it's a Google Sheets based one. And there is, I'm going to put the link in the chat, but in the presentation, which will be sent out as well, there will be a link in there. So, you know, don't worry about having to save it. You should be able to view it on your computer. If there's any login issues, let me know. And I'm just going to share the screen here. So like I said, this is just one, I have to find the right, there we go. One way that that it can be done. So the first page here that you're seeing is just a README. It's got a summary of what this is and how to use it. The second tab is an annual overview. So there's different ways that you could use this depending on how busy your year is and how far in advance you know things are coming. I put in just some like placeholder notes so you can see. If you just, even if all you do is just list the stuff that you know that's coming up so that it's all in one place, that by itself serves as a cheat sheet so that you know that it's coming up and you have to remember it. You can sort by date. You know, if you click at the top here and, you know, sort A to Z, I've already done it for this one. And then what I've done in here is I've shaded in the campaign periods for my imaginary events. So the purpose of that in this case is to show you when there's competing events. So you can see here, you know, I've only got a few things coming up in February and March. This particular one, my fictional musical show is April 25th to May 7th. You can see I have the shaded area starting in March because I'm thinking, you know what, I want to start promoting the show well in advance of opening day. So, in my mind, okay, so I'm going to start this in March, and that's going to work out really well because there's a little magician show that's just before it, and, it's not going to overlap. Further in my year, in my fictional calendar here, you can see that September and October starts getting busy. I've got a bunch of things happening at that time. So what that tells me is that, first of all, I'm going to be busy creating promos for all that stuff. And that's going to be more demanding in that time period. But also that means that there's going to be a bunch of different messages out at the same time over the same kind of period of weeks in there. That might get a little bit confusing or cluttered for my audience. So I can make a choice if I'm doing this in advance. I can look at this and I could say, well, maybe we could move this gala dinner. If I'm planning this in February, I might have room to do that. Maybe instead of making it October 19th, maybe I want to push it a little further into November so that it's not competing with these other events that I've got coming up. Or maybe I want to adjust the campaign periods. Maybe I don't need to start promoting things, as early as September 9th. Maybe both of these don't need to be promoted that early. Let's say maybe I want to reduce that. So I'm just going to change the color in there. And so the color coding is just a tool so that you can see it visually when there's stuff stacking up. I've got a, okay. So there's a message in the chat from Upstairs UE. I'm just saying I'm a new employee, and so I do learn something new every day. I don't have a strict schedule for posts, but I understand I need it. I am not a person who's going to say everybody has to have a strict schedule, but I do think that spending some time doing some planning, even periodically, even if you tend to improvise many of your posts still, it's still a useful thing to do. So this is that kind of summary of that annual overview. Does that make sense to everybody for how that sheet works? It's because it's an Excel spreadsheet. One of the reasons why it's designed this way is because it gives you the flexibility to add columns, to change things, use it in the way you want to use it. So, I've used it just putting colors in here, but you could easily type notes in those cells. You could add photos in those cells. You could do whatever you want to with your version. You just make a copy of it, and then it's yours to do with as you wish. So this is a version of a month view that I've got it in here. So you can see it's just very simple. What I would do is I would copy the sheet, to have one for each month. So depending if you're planning 1 month at a time or if you're planning several months at a time, you just make a copy of February, turn it into March and rejig it. But there's a place in there where you can add any current campaigns that are in market that you want to remind yourself to be aware of. Any other notes of stuff that you're intending to promote that month or that you want to do that month on in your communications. There's these notes levels up here. So week by week, you can add comments if that's more useful to you. Like I just have campaign XYZ, but let's say it starts the week of February 19th, and I want to remind myself of that so that I know it's coming up. I've made notes in here about what my fictional scenario is about how often I am intending to post. In real life, you might not have a blog, or you might have a blog that you're publishing every week or maybe once a month, right? So adjust that according to your plan. But here I've got it every 2 weeks. So I've put the placeholder in there going, okay, so I'm going to have the blog post come out, the week of February 5th and the week of February 19th. And in my fictional world, I also have a podcast, and that's also every 2 weeks. And I've scheduled that so it's alternating. In your world, you might not be doing all of that stuff, but it's just an example. It could be, that you, are posting a particular kind of photo or video, like maybe you do a Throwback Thursday, right? So if that's a part of your plan, then you might put Throwback Thursday as one of these cells and make notes to yourself, right? This is the week I'm planning to talk about this thing. So this is not getting into what is the text of your post. this is still just like notes, and it's part of that, like, so you got your brain dump of all of the ideas of things you could do or the things you intend to do. Where does that fit in your month? You know, you can have notes about cross-posting from different platforms. You can have notes about ads, anything that's going on in your marketing world, just so you can see what's coming up and spot, you know, am I missing something? Do I have a plan for what I'm going to write about in my blog? Have I booked a guest for my podcast? If that's what you're doing, all of that stuff. Any questions about the month view on that? Okay. And then I'll show you the weekly view. So again, there's lots of ways that people can do this. The weekly view is where you would get much more specific. This is the stuff that like is your to-do list for that week. Some people have the completed text for their posts written out and put into their content calendar. You know, in my fictional scenario, I'm picturing you're probably using a scheduling tool like you know, a Facebook or a Meta scheduler, or you're going to copy and paste as things come up. Either way, so this is still you know, what you're going to do without necessarily having the final text, but you could link it to say like the draft text of your blog post or whatever it is that you want to do. So this is, you know, a lot more specific. You know, I've got a note about newsletters in there, and you know, what is going to be the hero of my newsletter this week. You know, my newsletter, I'm going to draft it on Friday and I'm going to be sending it on Tuesday. So on Tuesday, we'll already have, you know, the draft ready. It just kind of helps me to organize what's happening in my week. Any questions on that level? Like, I'm not saying you need to use all 3 levels. And I'm not saying that your content plan needs to be complicated. You know, the idea for the template is just to have space where you can record what you're planning, so that you can follow that to-do list and keep track of what's coming up. And depending on what your life looks like and how busy things are for you in social media, maybe the week calendar is all you need. You know, just a to-do list of what am I doing this week, and you fill it out Friday or Monday morning, and then you've got your plan for the week. Or maybe the annual one is all you need, and really, you like the pain point, you know, you've got the weekly stuff coming out easily. That's not a problem. But what you would like is a little more lead time to see what's coming down the pipe later, so that you can plan the resources to produce, you know, campaign content a little further in advance. So depending on your needs, you might only use one view, or you could use all 3, or you could create your own template in a style that suits you. This is just one way that you could, you know, map it out for yourself. I'm going to show you something else here. This is a tool for translating ideas into a kind of more, I guess, like a brainstorming tool. So when you need to fill out those weeks, you know, as you're looking through what exactly am I going to say about the topic, is anybody here familiar with the idea of content pillars? Okay. So the idea with content pillars is you identify a small number of things that you're going to return to. So they could be topics, or they could be types of posts. And the example I'm going to show you here is, this is a 4x3 grid. What I have here is on the left, I've got topics. On the top, I've got kind of a kind of post, you know, like in my scenario here, I want to make sure I have a good mix of posts that are inspiring, posts that are educational, and posts that are practical, like offer tips on how to do stuff or why things are. And so what I've got here is just some placeholders, but you can see how, so if I know I want to go to the topic of upcoming shows, I think about, well, what's one way that I can, show something in a more kind of like inspiring, exciting light, one that's a little bit more educational about my show, and maybe one that is more with practical tips. So what I've got in my example here is the idea of having a Spotlight Sunday that is showcasing one of the performers and introducing them, and talking about like some fun and exciting moments from the show. And the educational side, it's, this is behind the scenes. Ever wonder how actors prepare for their roles? Take a look at our Instagram stories for a peek into our rehearsal process, right? So that's like, how is it made kind of thing. And then the how and why, I had the idea to do like a countdown of posts, each one with one tip for a way to make your show experience better. And so that would be in like the home stretch before a show. And I've done the same with topics. I had discounts, promotions, theater experience, and family-friendly shows. I'm not going to go through all of these because they're just placeholders. My intention to show you in showing you this is it gives you a way to return to the same topic multiple times in a way that is still consistent and helps you to brainstorm topics that aren't just like all over the place. So in the end, like this is 12 different posts, or at least the beginnings of posts. And in the case of my countdown of 10, it's, plus 10. But, that gives me a really reasonable number of posts to plan and schedule out with one simple, grid kind of format. So if you decide to use this format, like, again, this is totally something you can do in an Excel spreadsheet, or you can sketch out on paper. The main thing is just to think about like, what are your topics, and and is there a particular way you want to do it? So the inspiration, education, how and why is just an example. It could be that those three could be a video, a photo, and a text. If that's what you want to have to make sure that you've got that diversity. So there's different ways that you can do it. It just allows you to have both diversity and consistency. So one thing when I made this, I did get a little bit of help from Chat GPT. What I did was I asked Chat GPT to give me a list of 10 frequently asked questions that that I might get if I was the social media manager for a small town theater. So what would people be asking me? And of those, I picked 4 topics that I felt like throwing into this grid. And then I asked Chat GPT to give me some examples of social media posts or ideas that fit these categories: inspiration, education, how and why, or practical tips. I think I ended up revising it. After a few iterations, I just took the ones that made the most sense to me and tweaked them a little bit. So that also kind of speeds up the brainstorming process. Even if you don't use it exactly, it can just kind of get the wheels turning. Any questions before I go on? Okay. So when you're looking at filling up that scheduler, when you're going from idea into content creation, it's important to remember that you don't actually have to create all the content you're sharing on social media yourself. Creation is an important part of it, and that's going to be where your unique voice is going to be carried. But you can also look at becoming a curator, tuning in to what your audience is most interested in and helping them find it. So that could be, and of course that has to make sense within what you do, either as an organization or as an individual artist. But if you think about, the partnerships that you have, or things that are, shared interests, you can include that into the mix as well. It could be links. Well, you can't do links to newspaper articles anymore on Facebook, but a lot of people are screenshotting newspaper articles and sharing those instead, which people do appreciate because it lets them know that stuff is happening. It could be sharing somebody else's video or somebody else's photograph. It could also be things like curating the best of your Google reviews and screenshotting those, or making a Canva graphic that shows what people are saying about your venue, or if there's comments about the show that you've got happening, anything like that. So looking at repurposing things from elsewhere as well. You're not passing that off as your own stuff. Obviously, you're always giving credit to it, but that's also beneficial because people like to see that other people and other organizations have shared what they've produced. And then conversation is another piece of what you can consider in terms of keeping your social media active. So that can include things like paying attention to what people say in the comments, and maybe using that as a jumping off point for creating something. Like maybe somebody says, maybe you get a question in one of the comments on your post saying, can you give me an idea where to park? You could use that as the jumping off point for another post, just reminding people where the parking is close to your venue, right? And give credit to the person who asked the question. Or maybe it's a conversation with an artist or an expert that, that is producing work in your venue, or that you are partnered or affiliated with. You can ask questions as well. Question posts can do really well on social media, especially stuff that is easy to answer, like a this or that kind of question. What's your favorite? What's your first memory of? Things like that. So it's not always that you have to create some great work of art in order to keep your social media animated. Sometimes just being chatty and being friendly is enough. And when you're thinking about your social media, I always think that it's really important to play to your strengths. And that's as an individual and also as an organization. Everybody's going to come to it with a different skill set and different interests and orientations. And I think that we do our best work when we lean into that. So, if you're an organization that has lots of great photography, that's awesome. Lean into that, make photography the centerpiece of what you're sharing. If that's not what you have as an organization and it's not something you can easily get, look at what you can do. Maybe, maybe you've got some volunteers that can be participating. Maybe it's more text oriented stuff that you're doing. Maybe it's a podcast. I know somebody was laughing before about that, but maybe it is. Maybe that's what you're good at, is having conversations with people, and and interesting conversations are definitely something that's unique and valuable as well. So whatever it is that you do well, that's a really good place to focus, and you want to be on the platforms that appreciate that as well. Taking a very collaborative approach, if you can widen the pool of contributors, that's helpful in the sense of asking people for contributions of photos and videos, maybe seeing if some staff and volunteers can help with that, so that it's not all on you all the time. I do think it's helpful to have one person that is responsible for the overall scheduling of content and that oversees everything, just to make sure that the voice and brand is consistent. But it is helpful because people have different perspectives, people notice different things, and people have different creative gifts as well. And you never know, maybe you've got somebody that is connected to your organization who's really great at photography or video or something else that could be helpful for your social media. And I think, possibly one of the most important things on social media is having a very clear connection with your audience. Like, if you really know who you're talking to and you really understand what interests them, what motivates them, like that's the fuel that's going to really, ignite engagement on your page. So pay attention to what people respond to, what they share, what they say, and offline, pay attention to that as well. And what some people do is they keep notes of things people say. Like, are people talking about how comfortable the chairs are in your theater? Well, maybe that's actually a thing you should say on social media, because it's a real thing. People really do appreciate it. Maybe, you overhear somebody say like, oh, this was such a great night out, and I'm so glad that I didn't have to go into the city. So that could be a message that you repeat, and it's coming from your audience's voice and from their perspective. The other thing to keep in mind is trying to be creative about repurposing content. Maybe you've got a bank of photos. Maybe, I mean, they could be shared as photos, but you could also create a slideshow video with them, or you could create, like a little short stories, video that just pans in with some subtitles on it. Maybe you make some shareable images that are quotes from a longer text piece. If you do something like a longer interview over Zoom, or if you go and do a Facebook Live or something like that, afterwards pull out the highlights and make short videos of those and share those too. Listening and paying attention to comments, reviews, and so on. If you're doing any kind of surveys, you might be able to use quotes from the surveys if you've designed them in that way, and if you've got permission to share them. You might also see people posting, selfies or photos or tagging, your location or your art. And as long as it's public content, you can be resharing that too. And that kind of gives that additional social proof. Like, people like to see that other people like what's going on, and they like seeing it from another person's perspective and voice. You can also share stuff across platforms. There are some nuances around that. Like, I know Meta is particularly sensitive to TikTok videos being shared on the platform, because they don't want to promote TikTok, but the users like it. It's just that the Facebook algorithm doesn't like it. But if it's not done all the time or too often, it can kind of be an additional nice variety in the mix of what you're sharing. And sometimes it's just practical. We are working with limited time and resources, and in an ideal world, it might be great to produce unique content for all platforms, but a lot of us don't have time for all of that. So sometimes you do just share the same thing. One tool that is useful for a lot of people to manage the production side of things is Trello. I've included it in here as a suggestion. So there's a free plan with it, and you can use it as well as an editorial calendar, or where I've used it more, and I think maybe is slightly more useful, is when you're moving from idea to production. Because then at that point, you've made a decision, you're going to be investing some time in the product, and maybe you have a review process before publication at your organization. Maybe there's a few people involved to contribute to a piece of content. Like, let's say it's going to be something in a blog post, or it's going to be in your newsletter, and you need the copy drafted, and you need to make sure that you've got a photo that's attached with it, and you want to make sure that there's no changes in the details of the event. So there might be some steps that you need to follow before it's ready to go out in the world. If you have any kind of a complex scenario like that, or if you've got multiple things that you're juggling, Trello can be really useful for keeping track of that. We're going to move into using Chat GPT and some tips on that. But before I jump into that, are there any questions on what we've shared so far? Okay. I'm going to move fairly quickly through this. I'm including some, because I think we're coming close to time. Is that right, Roseanne?
Yeah, we're scheduled till 2, but we can run over with questions, and people can stay or leave as needed.
Okay, perfect. So I'll just run through quickly into this, and then we can, as Roseanne said, stay on for any questions. AI can be super useful, but it also can have a lot of pitfalls. So here's kind of a good cheat sheet of what I'm seeing so far. The tools are always evolving, and so this is a dynamic landscape that's going to change a lot over the next few years. Right now, what AI is great for is for things like brainstorming ideas. You can ask it to check grammar or spelling. You can ask it to help with translations. It's good at creating outlines if you're very specific about what it is that you're creating. So if you're writing a longer document. Generating variations on headlines or captions, like, give me 25 captions for this photo about XYZ. It'll give you a whole bunch of them, and maybe 23 are crap, but maybe one of them is pretty good. And so you take that one. It's okay at summarizing the main points of a text, but I found that it's, I don't find it reliable on that. So I would say use that with caution. It is good at creating checklists of things to follow and anything that is well understood and well established. It's less good at stuff that is, more nuanced, or that is less well understood, or where there is no best practice that's established. You have to be very careful, though, that you're not accidentally infringing on copyright, because you won't know if it has plagiarized things it's giving back to you. And, so that's something to be aware of. I would not use it for any kind of original creative text. I find more like, bread and butter stuff like, descriptive things or headlines. That's not so much of a worry. Sometimes it lies. It just makes things up. So don't trust that what it's telling you is true. I would only use it for things you already know something about, so that you can vet it and validate it. Do not use it to research things for you. It does not know everything, and it is not, and you don't know what sources it's drawing on, so you don't know if its sources are valid or not. It is a pattern making machine, and so the output is going to be generic. It's going to give you the most likely answer to any question you give it. Sometimes that's exactly what you want. Like, one thing I find really useful for it is using it for personas, because if I ask it, what flavors of ice cream is a 25-year-old, boy going most likely to like, it'll give me a list that's going to be a pretty good list, and it's probably going to be better than what I could invent, not being a 25-year-old boy myself. Long text I find more prone to mistakes, errors, and problems than short text. It's also harder to catch them because you can get lost in it. And I find sometimes, like, if you scan the text, it all looks great, but if you read critically, you'll realize that there are problems with it. So I would not trust long text. And the quality is variable. It doesn't give the same answers every time. And sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. So those are my caveats for AI. If you're using Chat GPT specifically, give it as much information as you can about what you want, and give it lots of context. So don't just ask the question, tell it, what kind of an answer you're looking for. So one of the tips that I have had from people who know a lot more about Chat GPT than I do is to give it a persona. So you can say, like, as a marketing manager, or as a theater operator, or, as a lumberjack, give it a character to play, and it will respond with things that a person like that is likely to say. Include instructions on things like tone of voice. Give it very clear instructions on the format you're looking for, because the output will be different. Like, do you want your headline to be a certain length? You can tell it that. Do you want a 400-word blog post outline, or do you want an 800-word blog post outline? The output you get may be different for it. And prompting is iterative. So if you don't like what it comes back with the first time, you can add extra layers to it. Like, you can say things like, regenerate this text in plain language, or keep this text to no more than a grade 10 reading level, things like that. So that you can get a little closer to what you want. Or you could even say things like, rewrite it in a more playful tone of voice. And it'll regenerate everything, to be, a little more casual and playful. If you're using it often, there's a paid upgrade, and I did test it for a while, and I did find that it was better. I don't use AI often enough to make it worth continuing to pay for, but if you find that it's a useful co-pilot, it's maybe worth looking at. So I've got some prompt examples in the presentation, and I'll let you guys play with that on your own time. But here's one example of a prompt, and I've got a couple of links on the side here. So of course, the link to Chat GPT for anybody who needs it, it's chat.openai.com. And there's a tool called promptdrive.ai, which is basically just a tool that allows you to save the prompts that work, so that you have your own list of stuff that you can return to later, because some prompts are better than others. So this was one. What are 10 frequently asked questions this target audience has about a topic? And so you can use that as a way to get started with social media posts on things, like I did when I produced that grid brainstorm. Because answering people's questions is that's something that's interesting. And it might give you some ideas for, for other kinds of content you could produce as well. So this that was a simple prompt. This is another prompt. So the stuff in the curly brackets, of course, is what you would change. I need to sell tickets to an upcoming performance of Cabaret. Can you provide me with a list of 25 suggestions for social media posts to promote the show on whatever the platform is? The target audience for this show is blank, and the show is blank. So if it's a show that is well known and established, like let's say it is The Wizard of Oz, you probably won't need to tell it a lot of information about what that is. It will be able to find things on what is The Wizard of Oz. If it is a brand new show or something that's more recent or a little more obscure, you might want to give it some more context about, like, the plot of the show, or what are the key selling points of the show, so that it can use that to generate the prompts or the output. This one is an even more complicated one, and the output of this is quite extensive. Act as a social media manager for, a small town theater, let's say, and create a detailed outline with descriptions for each element of a 90-day editorial calendar, including social posts on whatever platforms you're using, videos and email newsletter topics. Add more detail to each tactic. The focus of the content on this period should be, and describe any key themes or topics. And it's going to give you a ton of stuff. Like I said, some of it, maybe a lot of it won't be useful to you, but some of it might be. And it takes like a minute to put in that prompt, and it can help to kind of grease the wheels if you're having some trouble coming up with ideas. And this is a generic prompt framework you can apply to all kinds of questions. So as a whatever role, like I said, a social media manager could be one. As an astrophysicist could be another. Give it a task. I want you to calculate the distance between this star and this star, or I want you to come up with like 50 ideas for ways I could be using Instagram stories, whatever it is. Follow the following steps to complete this task. So if it's a task that you want it to follow several steps, like give it the steps. So for example, you might say that you want it to create a list of 10 things with 3 bullets with specific ideas on something following it. Or you might want to tell it to, review a text for grammar and spelling errors and give me a list of suggestions and explain why you are making these suggestions. So, getting that specific with the prompts can be helpful. You can add any notes on context, on why you're asking the question, any constraints. So that could be format, that could be tone of voice, that could be word count. It could be, do you want it to use markup so that it's using like headlines and subheadlines and things like that? Or, if you want it to do that, you can tell it that. And a big one is to specify the goal, so it knows why you're asking the question. So you can give it all of that kind of information, and that's going to help get a more specific answer for you. Okay, yeah, there's a question. I'm actually towards the end of the presentation. This was the last one here to act as a marketing consultant and create a detailed list of marketing tactics for a small town performance arts venue based on each of the 7 stages of the marketing hourglass: know, like, try, buy, repeat, and refer. I don't know if you are familiar with the marketing hourglass. It's just one other way to describe the buyer journey. You know, the pathway that somebody takes from becoming aware of your organization to buying a ticket and maybe referring to a friend. But this can give you lots of ideas as well for things you can do to promote your organization. It's interesting to see what it comes up with. And that is the end of what I've got here for the slides, but does anybody have any questions or comments or thoughts on what we went through today? Everybody's so quiet.
We're all processing.
Yeah. Oh, that's great, Heather. You've Heather Dawson has made a copy of the Excel sheet and she's been filling it in. Heather, if you have any questions or any feedback to improve the sheet, you know, I would love to hear it. Yeah, it's intended to be plastic and to let people play with it. I'm curious to see how people respond to it. It'd be nice to keep improving it as well to meet people's needs. Yeah, that's awesome. Who here feels like they would like to go and test out some of these prompts on Chat GPT? And is there anybody that is still feeling like you're not sure you even want to touch that?
Yeah.
That's where you're headed next, is to Chat GPT. That's great. That's awesome. Oh yeah, and Heather, that's a great idea to add tabs for content ideas and content pillars. It's a really, really good idea.
I use Chat GPT a lot for writing grants. I know that's not marketing related, but helped me a lot with my Mac operating grant.
That is a great example of good use for Chat GPT. I find whenever I use it for writing, I end up rewriting everything it gives me. But what it does is, it's a lot easier to look at something and go, oh no, it's wrong in all these ways, and go fix it, versus looking at a blank page and going, oh, what should I do next?
Or you've like written the same grant like 4 times. You're like, I want to just jazz it up a bit, and I submit all the content, and it gives me another take on it.
Ah,
Fresh
smart.
perspective.
Very smart. Yeah, I've even tested with doing things like providing suggestions for short videos, and it will generate script outlines and things like that, all kinds of stuff. It can be a bit of a time suck though, and like I said, the output is so variable that it's kind of, for me, it hasn't become a core part of my routine. I turn to it if I get stuck, and or if I'm procrastinating doing real work. But for the uses that we talked about in the presentation, it can be really helpful. You know, the headline variations actually are one. I'm not good with writing headlines. I'm better with longer form text, and so I'll have it generate a long list. I'll have it give me 20 possible headlines for something, and then usually I'll Frankenstein something that I like out of different elements of what it comes up with. Heather.
So part of the reason why I took this workshop was that I'm taking baby steps in my mind towards using a little bit more electronic stuff. I'm a little house on the prairie kind of girl. So I'm a wall calendar. I got the book that I write stuff in the calendar.
Yeah.
So I'm taking steps towards using more electronic stuff. So I've got the desktop. I've got the old desktop that the grandpa gave my dad before he passed away. My dad said, "Here's the desktop," and I was like, I don't know. I'll do the Zoom stuff. I'll do the webinars. I'll do the, you know, I'm getting the information to do the work, right? In between the careers, that kind of thing. But I'm the photographer. I'm the person that goes out and does the work behind the camera, right? I'm that person.
Yeah.
So I go and I look for the thing behind the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's about the applying the thing, right? So I got invited to be a part of the ground up to open a museum. So there's somebody already doing, she's actually in school to do marketing. And so I'm like, oh, well, the door is opening for me to step into the world of marketing. So every time I'm turning the corner, there's marketing doors opening for me. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go and take these little cookie crumbs, like I said, and I'm going to follow these little cookie crumbs to open the door for me to go in to see the world of marketing as well. So maybe I can work alongside with her to do that little piece. So I don't know where I fall into this whole world of wherever this museum's going to open up and be a part of that. So the museum is actually going to be online, and it's also going to be physically a building somewhere outside of Winnipeg or inside of Winnipeg. It might just be a little bit on the outskirts of Winnipeg. It's going to be somewhere, and it's going to be a part of something that's going to happen. And so I don't know what that role is going to be for me or how that's going to look, but it will happen at some point. And so
that sounds really exciting.
It's very exciting. And so I don't know what role the artwork that I do is going to be involved in that. I don't know where my art is going to take me, but there's also, I steward some land outside the city. So I'm also interested in curating some sort of art stuff, like an art walk that happens in different areas of Manitoba. I'm interested in doing some sort of curation of an art thing in the land that I steward. So gathering people together that do art and just have like an art show on the land that I steward and invite people here to do some sort of thing like that. So I don't know how that would look because there is no art walk up the area where I live. I'm like the east side of Lake Winnipeg, up Highway 59 area. And I don't know, I think there's something over like on the sort of Lake Winnipeg side, but I don't know if there's anything up this way. So I have to sort of look around and see what's out there.
Cool.
But I don't know of anything up this way. So I maybe there's some more things in the beaches, but I don't know if there's anything actually up along this way where I am. But I want to investigate that a little bit more now that the doors are opening and I'm not working where I was, and sort of my time is just more available to do more things that I want to do, but not what I was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think I think sometimes people get intimidated by the technology on these things, but I really believe that the secret superpower in being a good marketer and a good communicator, it isn't the technology. The technology just lets you, do what you already are trying to do more efficiently, maybe, or in a different way. It's actually empathy. If you really understand your target audience and you really know what's the right message that they need to hear right now, then how you communicate that. I mean, people were doing marketing and communications before there was any such thing as an internet. So, we can't forget that, fundamentally it comes down to people being people and understanding your audience and communicating to them in the way that is most suitable for them and their needs.
Yeah. So the way that you presented this at the beginning was like, it was presented in a gentle way of like, yeah, I mean, it's there. This is the new way of marketing, right? And it's okay. It was gentle. So that was nice. So thank you. Yeah. And then I did this literal, like with my eyes, like with toothpicks open last night. I signed up for this little marketing crash course. And it was like, do you want to slip into this? Like, oh, it just ended, but hey, here's an email. Do you want to slip into this crash course of marketing? And I was like up for an hour and a half crash coursing on this other thing last night. And it was like the same sort of thing that sort of married with this thing this afternoon. So it was like, wow. And it was really understand your audience, right? Like, what is your audience?
Yeah.
Go after your audience. Really go after your audience.
Yeah,
You already
absolutely.
know what you have. You already know what your gifts are, right? Yeah. So understand that. And then this is the tool to get you there as well. So have this as a tool, right?
That's exactly it. There's so
Understand.
many different ways that you can connect with your audience and that you can communicate your message or tell your story. And that's why I don't like to think about things like a Facebook strategy or an Instagram strategy, because I feel like that's not putting the emphasis in the right place. You know, there's just who are you trying to reach and what are you trying to accomplish? Like, what is the message you need to communicate, or what is the action that you're trying to trigger? And there are lots of different ways to solve that problem, and Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or whatever may or may not be a part of the tool set you use for your task. We will have some other workshops coming up. I don't have the dates in front of me. Do you happen to have it, Roseanne?
I think Roseanne sent it out in the email.
Okay, perfect. So you all have it in the email. Perfect. And there will be a recording of the session going out, and the PowerPoint slides as well will go out. Thanks so much for taking the time out of your afternoon today to join me for this. And I hope that you got some useful takeaways from the session and some useful tools.
Thanks very much. It was great.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brianna.